we're going to talk about something that there is no humorous way to go into this. I talked about it on my social media, and it's created a bit of a firestorm of people who either were not aware of this case or were fired up by this case and are happy that there is someone running for office who actually is demonstrating that they're listening to what's happening and that these types of injustices have to end. And that is the murder of Ryan Whitaker, which to this day, no one is being tried or, as far as we can tell, even investigated for.
Right. Now, it all started because there is no good way to start it. We'll have to start into it at the beginning with the multiple 911 calls, which I'm gonna preface this. Areas of these calls have been redacted, so there's going to be pauses, and I just put the two calls back to back in one video, so you're going to hear two calls that were made by Philip, who is Ryan Whitaker's upstairs neighbor.
Phoenix Police, this is Steve. How can I help you?
Hi, Steve. I have a domestic dispute going on, and I can tell that they're just at each other's throats.
Phoenix Police, this is Philip. How can I help you?
Hi, Philip. I called about a half hour ago to report a domestic dispute.
What was the address that you gave?
To where the dispute is. Building 12.
Okay, is this
And
in
they
reference
just-
to a male and a female and a verbal?
Oh, yeah, and it's getting really loud, and they've been doing it for the last hour. I got to get it to work tomorrow, and I can't get no sleep. These guys have been noisy constantly. Every time I come back, these guys are noisier than hell. Always
Okay,
fighting.
and does it sound like it's escalated to anything physical, or it still just sounds verbal?
Oh, it could be physical. I could say, yeah. Does that make anybody hurry up and get over here any faster?
Key point there.
To indicate
Key
that
point
it
there.
might be physical.
I hear slamming of doors, and I don't know. Somebody could be getting thrown into a door for all I know. But I hear all kinds of banging.
Okay, keep in mind, his complaint was not, there's a problem, someone please help, someone's in danger. He said, they're being noisy, I have to go to work, they're being very loud.
Right.
The dispatcher asked, are they being physical? Could it be physical? And he said,
Yes.
sure, yeah.
Yes, I'll say they are if it means that you will get here faster.
If it means that you will get here faster. That is very clear. That this person is saying, yeah, what do I have to tell you to get you to actually come out and deal with this? Because I've kept calling repeatedly and I have to go to work. Now, in retrospect, why he didn't just go downstairs and knock on the door and say, hey, excuse me, I'm going to work.
Can you keep it down? I got to get up in the morning.
I got to get up in the morning. That's which he'd be well within his rights to do. They share a space. We certainly empathize with someone who needs to go to work the following day.
And I am certain that Ryan Whitaker and his girlfriend, Brandy, would have definitely obliged and happily been quieter. But that's not what happened.
That's not what happened. Instead, go ahead.
Before we play this video,
yep,
I want everybody to know that you are about to watch a man die from multiple angles and in varying speeds. So if you don't want to see that, look away.
Yeah, don't watch this part because this is necessary that people see it. But if you are faint of heart or don't want to see this, then you do not want to watch this part because you're about to watch a man be murdered. So
multiple.
So that is the warning, and we are starting it now.
Phoenix Place. How you doing? Whoa! Put hands! Phoenix Place. How you doing? Whoa! Put your hands down!
Okay, here he is. They were away from the viewfinder, so he had no idea who was coming out. He puts his gun down, he has his hands up, and they kill him. Look, his hands down, he's putting his hands up. In no way, and the person behind him, who is of absolutely no danger here.
From the gun. Get back and
Now watch.
Get out here.
Now watch
Come
this.
out here. Come out. I'm not going to shoot you. Come out here.
Now they're going to gaslight her, having just watched her boyfriend get murdered.
Get down on your knees. Get down on your knees. Just get down. Just get down. Relax.
Was anything going on inside? Because your neighbor called saying that he heard you guys going at it. Arguing, fighting.
Literally, we were making salsa and playing Crash Bandicoot, so there may have been some screaming from PlayStation, but it's it wasn't domestic violence or anything.
Well, and that's how the call came out. And that's why we knocked on your door.
We watched it. We just saw what happened from two angles in slow motion.
Right.
Because they weren't in front of the door, this person who got a very loud knock on their door late at night, who was every bit within his right to do so, opened the door with a gun at low, not pointed at anyone, behind his back, answering the door. They say, show your hands. He drops the gun, puts his hands up, and they kill him anyway. Then when his girlfriend comes out, they lie and say that he went after them and pulled a gun on them. And we have the video showing that he didn't do anything of the sort, and that there was actually a good solid 1 or 2 seconds of them seeing what was happening in front of them. This was not some split-second thing where he came out with a gun and they reacted quickly. He was in the process of surrendering, and the person behind him
on the ground.
He was getting on the ground, and the cop behind him murdered him.
Yes. And that officer's name is Jeff Cook, for anybody who's interested. The other one's name is John Ferragamo. And as of this time, as we said earlier, there have been no charges and no arrests, no investigation into this.
Yep. There's been no warrant. It's possible there's been an investigation started, but there has been no warrants issued, which means if there is an investigation, they're slow walking the hell out of this thing because they can.
Right. And Bry Guy on Facebook says, anyone can say it's the cops. Yes, anybody can say it's the cops. That is absolutely correct. If I'm want to do harm to somebody, which I don't, but if I wanted to do harm to somebody and I pounded on their door at 2:30, I would 100% say I'm the police and step off to the side.
Yep.
Because people will come out for that.
Yep.
What Ryan Whitaker did was try to protect himself. And when the moment he saw that it was the police, he drops the gun, puts his hands up, and goes to surrender towards the cop that he saw. Because when he came out, you saw him looking right at Ferragamo. And so he surrendered facing him. And that was when Jeff Cook put 2 or 3 into his back.
Yep. There's no overstating what happened here.
No.
Because we watched it. We watched it happen. So, yes, they deserve a fair trial and due process and everything else. But it's looking like they might not get that. They might just get what we often see when police officers are murdering people on camera. And for those who want to say, well, last second decision, what would you do? Here's what I would do. Not murder him. And if I did, even if it was a big mix-up, if there was picture evidence, video evidence, that I knocked on someone's door, they came out, and while putting their gun down, I shot them in the back multiple times, I would be in jail right now, and I would be facing at the very least some kind of manslaughter charge or lesser murder charge.
And their neighbor, Philip, he called the police because Ryan and his girlfriend Brandy were playing Crash Bandicoot and making salsa.
Yep. Yep. And again, in the video, in that 911 call that you heard, he just said, "Yeah, sure, it could be physical.
Just get here faster."
Yep. He just, if you'll get here faster, sure. And now there was a full video, according to azcentral.com, in the full video, which may not have been released to the public.
It was, but I couldn't find an unedited version of it. So I couldn't find a good copy.
John Ferragamo, who is the cop who didn't shoot him, correct? The one he was facing? Yeah.
Cook,
could be heard saying, did you like all that helpful info we got from our complainant? I'm just going to say yes. So he's mocking the caller. I'm just going to say yes to all the questions to get the officers here faster. They knew that this was a garbage call.
They 100% knew this was a garbage call.
They knew that this was utter garbage. And they were in a defensive posture that allowed them to not be in any danger by a man who came out, again, within every right that he had in Arizona, to come out and with a gun behind his back, and then realizing he was dealing with police officers, immediately put it down. And then about a second and a half later, as he's putting it down and putting his hands in the air, cop decided to kill him anyway.
Jeff Cook shot him 3 times. I think it says 2 times in the back, but he definitely pulled the trigger.
I think it was 3 times.
Everything I read said he shot him twice in the back, but I know he fired 3. I've seen that video.
I believe it was 3 times, and I don't want to watch it again.
No, I don't either.
This was a murder. And when I say this was a murder, any one of us who did this, we would be in jail right now awaiting trial.
Now, I will say that there is unedited footage of Ferragamo, but they block off a lot of things. So it didn't look, you wouldn't have gotten the full impact of the video as you did with that one.
Yep.
And that's the one where it said, did you like all the helpful info we got from our complainant?
Yeah.
Jeff Cook did not have unedited body camera footage released.
Yeah. The guy who shot him, we only got a bit of it, which means they're hiding something. Because we got the unedited footage from the other police officer. Yep. And we got the footage of him actually shooting Ryan. We just don't have whatever happened. Was it before or after that? Or I guess before and after that.
Yeah, before and after.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know what happened before and after. I'm guessing it's a lot of after.
Yeah. I'm guessing it's a lot of after, or maybe a little before, that demonstrated that he didn't think even, and it probably is a lot of after, him demonstrating that he did not think that this person was a threat.
Because in what I was reading when I was doing the show notes on this, when Ferragamo says, did you like all that helpful info we got from our complainant? And I'm just going to say yes to all the questions to get the officers here faster. Cook was responding. Cook was responding to these questions and to these comments, but you couldn't understand.
You can't hear what he's saying,
so you don't know what he's saying.
But in his body cam, you might be able to hear what he was saying.
Oh, you'll definitely you would definitely be able to hear it, which is why they aren't releasing it.
So what they'll probably do is release this like a year and a half, 2 years from now, which is what recently happened with another case of officers killing someone under pretty shady circumstances, and that's a common thing. They investigate themselves, find that they did nothing wrong, and then they release the evidence showing they did quite a bit wrong long enough afterwards for people to go, oh, well, that's an old case. We just have to move on and hold them accountable in the future. Oh, and they won't be held accountable because of thanks to qualified immunity, unless these officers are actually prosecuted and convicted it is almost certain that Brandy and the family of Ryan Whitaker will not be able to sue either these officers or the police department.
And this isn't the first case this year where somebody has either called in a I'm blanking, where you check up thing.
Yeah, wellness visit. Yeah,
yeah, wellness visit. Where somebody's called in a
wellness check. Yeah,
wellness check. That's it. Where somebody's called in a wellness check and somebody has ended up getting shot by the police, or that somebody called on a noise complaint that they acted was so much worse than a noise complaint because they had to wake up in the morning and they just wanted the cops to get there. And because of that, somebody is dead.
Yep. And Matt Bain in the comments says, OG vid, I'm not sure if that was a misspelling, but OG had them struggling to find the apartment and clearly aggravated and already had guns drawn before even figuring out why or where. So these cops were angry and looks like they took it out on someone when they thought they might have cover. And again, I guarantee you the reason that footage hasn't been released is because it's them saying that. But we don't know. We don't know what's on that. But here's what we do know. What we just saw in two different angles, even in slow motion, was that a man who was clearly surrendering for like a good solid 2 seconds. This was not like a split second. He came out, like that. He came out. It was never pointed at them. He put his hand up. He's dropping the gun.
Had it down.
Already going down.
Moved down.
And they shot him anyway. And then they lied to his girlfriend. He came after us with a gun. No, actually, you came after him with guns. That was his home.
He pulled a gun on us, ma'am. No, he didn't.
Yeah, no, they didn't. No, he didn't. And yeah, here is the problem. And we talk about this a lot on the show. Don't call the police on people unless you think you know for certain that someone's life is potentially in danger. Do not call the police unless you are okay with the person that you are calling the police on being killed. Stop doing it. Stop doing it. Most police officers are not trained to de-escalate or to deal with nonviolent situations. Often they are trained to escalate. Stop calling the police. If you have a problem with your neighbor being loud, go talk to them. Stop calling the police. This is what happens when you call the police on something that the police aren't needed for. You don't bring a hammer when the problem is an egg, because you'll end up with a smashed egg. The hammer's for the nail. It's not for something that isn't a nail. Police officers are armed, they are increasingly militarized, and they're in both their training and their equipment, and this is what happens. Stop treating your neighborhood like Fallujah.
Some of the people in the comments, who have seen the whole video, said that the full video had audio of the officer saying aloud, "I don't have time for this."
Yep.
Said, "I don't have time for this." Like you said, that they were going around, that they couldn't find the place. They already had guns drawn.
Yep. It's what Sunshine Rose says, never call, they will twist everything and you will end up in jail. Well, I think Ryan would have loved to have been in jail. And I get the point you're trying to make. This is
I both agree. And also Ryan would have loved to.
Yeah, Ryan would have loved to go to jail. I mean,
would have been out the next morning.
And she also said there's no innocent until proven guilty. And that's the point, is that in that moment, Ryan was not only treated like he was guilty, he was treated as though he was deserving of being killed, even though he was surrendering in front of them. Every bit of his body language and the fact that the gun wasn't at no point pointed towards them demonstrated that he was, and this wasn't someone who was sneaking up on them to ambush them. They came to his house. It's obvious as soon as he realized he was dealing with cops that he was putting the gun down.
Yeah.
And again, if any one of us did this, we would be facing prosecution for it, and they'd have an open and shut case, and we'd be trying to plea it down to try to not end up, in prison for the rest of our lives. And we'd be begging for the mercy of the court because blah, 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 blah. It happened so quickly. And yet these officers aren't even being searched.
Nope.
This is why Joe and I are running. These types of stories are why we are running. We're running for a myriad of reasons. Ending the wars, bringing the troops home, getting government out of healthcare so that the cost of healthcare can go down and access to affordable care can go up. There's a myriad of reasons we are running. This is one of them. We have an increasingly unaccountable and militarized police force that is encouraging this kind of bad, sometimes murderous policing and punishing good policing by holding bad cops accountable and telling good cops it doesn't matter if you try to stop them, no one's going to be held accountable anyway. So it actually encourages, and we have spoken with police officers who are quitting the force because they don't want to be involved with this anymore. These are the officers who signed up to protect and serve their communities and their neighbors and their neighborhoods and the public. And when they see what is increasingly becoming the culture in police departments and government agencies around this country, they say, never mind. I'll leave you to it because the system is entirely set up to encourage bad actions like this. And we are seeing it play out. We see it play out with people in multiple other cases. Tamir Rice, John Crawford, Eric Garner, George Floyd. Thankfully, George Floyd's killer is being tried, but that even took a while. That took protests before that happened, and there was a live stream video, an 8-minute video of him casually killing George Floyd, whose hands were behind his back and who was down on the ground on his face. This is what happens when the people who are given the authority to enforce laws over using whatever level of violence is necessary to achieve your compliance are also allowed to not be held accountable when they abuse that power and that authority. And that will end with the election of Joe Jorgensen.
Do you remember the name of the judge we talked about last week?
I don't remember the name, but I know the one we're talking about, yeah.
Right.
Was it Clarence or no?
Yes.
I think so. But anyway, yes. So it was a judge that had a terrible case in front of him and basically said, I have to give you qualified immunity because that's the precedent, but that needs to end because this officer was wrong.
Right. This officer was wrong. And he wrote a scathing opinion and sent it off to the Supreme Court saying, this needs to change and this needs to change now. And it was brutal to read.
Yep.
Because it was heartbreaking as it just went through person after person after person after person who more or less all of them were murdered by police and all of them got off because of qualified immunity.
The case that was in front of him was of a man who, because he completely complied and thankfully the officer just wanted to give him a hard time, didn't want to kill him, he ended up leaving with his life. But this was a case where and I'm forgetting the names, an officer pulled over a man who wasn't actually doing anything wrong. The officer claimed that
Mercedes, right?
Yeah, he was in a Mercedes. He was a black man in his 40s who was in a Mercedes, and the officer pulled him over, claiming that his license plate was obstructed or some absurd thing, even though in the footage it was obvious that it was not obstructed. He pulled him over for no reason because he was a black guy in a Mercedes and he wanted to give him a hard time, and he thought he had some kind of hunch that he was doing something wrong, or he just wanted to give him a hard time and didn't even think anything was wrong. And what he did was he searched the man's car himself, couldn't find anything. He lied to the man that he pulled. I wish I could remember names here. He lied to the man he pulled over and said that they had a hot tip that he had cocaine or something like that. And they said, so I'm gonna search your car. The man let him search the car. He found nothing. He actually ripped the car apart, brought in a canine, took off like bumpers and fenders, and then when nothing was found, he left him there on the side of the road to put his car back together and drive off. And then when he actually lives in South Carolina, when he got home, I don't know if it was there, if he waited till he got home or did it there, the officer did like $5,000 in damage to his vehicle. And guess who didn't have to pay a thing for that? That officer and that department because of qualified immunity. Even though that officer broke the law by detaining that man without any cause and lied. And it was all on evidence. They had the body cam, they had the car cam, they had everything. There was sufficient evidence that he lied and he walked. And he is still serving right now. This ends when we get libertarians in office. The police should be there to protect our lives, our rights, and our property. Anything else should not be happening. And when bad officers abuse their authority, they should be held accountable even more so than civilians would be in similar situations, because we don't have that authority. We don't have that ability to, to decide whether someone lives or dies in the same way that a police officer does. So when they abuse that, they need to be held even more accountable than we are. And that happens when you elect Joe Jorgensen and when you elect libertarians up and down the ballot. We get enough of us on there and these things start to change. We don't need another Ryan Whitaker. We don't need another George Floyd. We don't need another Breonna Taylor. We don't need another John Crawford or another Eric Garner or another Tamir Rice or any of these. These need to end. We've seen too many of them and they need to end. Duncan Lemp, these all need to end.
All of them.
So go ahead.
So we've been doing this show. I've been doing this show for just under 4 years. You've been doing this show for 2? Coming up on 2?
Yeah, 2 years, yeah.
It's about 2 years?
Yep, just about 2 years.
I think September is going to be 2 years for you. We have done a lot of these stories.
Yeah,
over
too
the
many.
Course of over my 4 years and over Spike's 2 years. We have done a lot of these stories. And every time they don't get easier. They never get easier to do, because every time they suck and they hurt and they just eat you on the inside that this is happening.
Yep.
And nothing is going to change. And I don't give many endorsements for Spike on the show, but literally nothing is going to change unless you get Jorgensen going in the White House 2020.
Yep.
Because Trump's not going to change it. Biden's not going to change it.
Joe Biden just demonstrated what you're going to get. You're going to get female blackface on the same bad policies that have led to so many countless number of egregious violations of our rights, up to and including murder, like what we just saw, as well as countless examples of everyone, but even disproportionately higher on the most marginalized among us. That is what you were going to get. Joe Biden selecting Kamala Harris is the VP pick equivalent of Nancy Pelosi putting on a kente cloth and kneeling in the lobby of the Capitol building and saying, Black Lives Matter, and then doing absolutely nothing to change the policies or the systems that are in place that allow that infringement on the lives of people of all colors, and again, most disproportionately against marginalized communities, but against all of us. It needs to end, and it's not going to end with this performative wokeness garbage. It's going to end with actual concrete policy changes that will reduce and decentralize the state's power and take the hands of the power and the decision-making and the wealth and the freedom and the decision-making out of the federal government, who has created this system, and putting it back in the hands of the communities and the people where it always belonged. It is not going to come from Republicrats. It is going to come from an across-the-board change at the electoral level. Not just for Joe and I, but for libertarians running up and down. We just saw, they made sure another Breonna Taylor's not going to happen? The Louisville City Council had to pass a resolution ending no-knock raids and making them illegal. And it's great that happened. It was Republicans and Democrats who did that, and they did it unanimously. But it took someone being murdered for it to happen. When you elect libertarians, they don't wait for someone to get murdered for these things to happen, because they already knew it was a problem, and they aren't waiting for it to be focus group tested and poll tested before they do it. Hey, everybody. Hey. You know what's more fun than this?
Subscribing to us on YouTube.
Subscribing to our page. Hey, you gotta hit our page and subscribe to it.
And make sure you hit the bell.
You gotta hit the bell. If you don't hit the bell,
If you don't hit the bell,
you might miss something.